For many years now, pro wrestling fans have chimed in on the whole Attitude Era versus Ruthless Aggression Era debate, argument of sorts. Which era was better? Which era had, better storylines, better matches, better moments? In this video, I'm gonna do my best to, off the cuff, run over, in my opinion, which was better, what moments were best from each, who are the biggest stars of each, all that kind of good stuff. So if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, hit the sub button, all that kind of stuff. You guys know the drill. But anyway, Ruthless Aggression Era versus the Attitude Era, Attitude Era versus Ruthless Aggression Era, however you want to put it. In my opinion, now, it's a tricky one because it really depends what you're looking for. Like, if you're looking for quality of in-ring action, the quality of the in-ring product, the matches, you're going to have to go with the Ruthless Aggression Era. The Ruthless Aggression Era had much better wrestling because, for one, Shawn Michaels was back for the Ruthless Aggression Era. He wasn't really in the Attitude Era. Like, I know Shawn, he was there in the end of 97, the very beginning of 98, when he dropped the title to Austin at Mania 14, but by and large, Shawn Michaels wasn't there, and he is one of the greatest in-ring performers of all time, if not the greatest, depending on who you talk to. So Shawn Michaels came back for the Ruthless Aggression Era. He had a bunch of great, phenomenal in-ring type matches. I mean, Jericho at WrestleMania 19, Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 21. Kurt Angle is someone who, he was a part of the Attitude Era, he's part of the Ruthless Aggression Era. He did some of his best work matches-wise in the Ruthless Aggression Era. So that's just another example of the Ruthless Aggression Era in the matches. I think people like Shelton Benjamin, people like that, people like obviously Kurt Angle, people like Jericho, getting more of an opportunity to showcase their in-ring ability during the Ruthless Aggression Era. I think that was big. Eddie Guerrero and all these kind of guys who got the chance to showcase their in-ring ability during the Ruthless Aggression Era, I think in that regard makes Ruthless Aggression Era better than the Attitude Era in the regards of in-ring quality. I think that's almost irrefutable, because the thing with the Attitude Era, as I've gone over, the way they booked their shows was for a high-octane, entertainment-based show. For example, Monday Night Raw, Raw is War, like back in 1998, for example, 1999, we get a big opening segment with Stone Cold Steve Austin, the Corporation, the Ministry, whoever, and then we cut to Test versus Mideon for 2 minutes, and then we do a tag team match, Gangrel and I don't know, someone else versus the Dudley Boys, and they'd have like that match go for 2.5 minutes, and throughout that we'd be cutting backstage and seeing what Steve Austin has to say to Vince McMahon, or about Vince McMahon, or has The Undertaker arrived in the building, what's The Rock doing. Like, that was the kind of show structure, so it wasn't really about in-ring wrestling, it was more so about just general entertainment. Whereas in the Ruthless Aggression Era, there was more of that prevalence based on the in-ring work. Another good example, the SmackDown 6. SmackDown in the second half of 2002, 2003, lots of emphasis placed on in-ring wrestling. I look at those guys, Edge, Eddie Guerrero, like just the in-ring quality, Rey Mysterio, Chris Benoit, need I go on? Like, Chris Benoit was another one. In the Ruthless Aggression Era, Benoit became World Heavyweight Champion, had some phenomenal matches in that regard, had phenomenal matches, not even in the world title picture, just in general. Like, more guys had phenomenal matches in the Ruthless Aggression Era than the Attitude Era. So in that regard, the Ruthless Aggression Era is better. As far as, now we're going to move on from matches, let's talk about superstars. Let's talk about the star power, the names that make you turn on the show. Now, in my opinion, this one far and away goes to the Attitude Era. The Attitude Era easily gets the nod on this one for star power, because when I look at star power, yes, the Ruthless Aggression Era collectively across Raw and SmackDown had more talent, or then again it's touch and go, because on Raw in, let's say, 2003, Monday Night Raw in 2003, you had Triple H with the big gold belt, you had him with the rest of Evolution, so Randy Orton when he was like 20, Batista when he was like 32, because Batista came into the company really late, but Batista before he became a star, Ric Flair when he was like a shell of himself back in like 2003. So you had that. Who else did you have on Raw? You had Goldberg. Goldberg was there. He was a name value star. You had who? Jericho was on Raw. You had Shawn Michaels on Raw. Who else was on Raw in this time period? Kevin Nash. Like, I mean, there's some good names, but as far as in 2003, 2004, 2005, how many of these like Raw guys were really at the top of their game? Like, I look at Raw, it was Triple H holding the big gold belt in the quote-unquote reign of terror, where he supposedly buried everyone, even though the only person he buried was Booker T. And then you look at the rest of the roster, it was Triple H and then who? I just listed them. Any of those guys really jumping out at you, like, yeah, Shawn Michaels is great, Jericho's great, but that was really it. And then you look at SmackDown. SmackDown, in many people's opinions, was the better show from 2002 through 2005, 2006. I tend to agree with that. I think SmackDown was more of the wrestling show. It had the better storylines. I think, for example, Eddie Guerrero and how, you know, his road to the title, and how he was a SmackDown guy through and through from the SmackDown 6 when he was a tag team with Chavo, and then how he moved to 2003 and get to 2004, he's becoming a main eventer, and he has the matches with Kurt Angle and the WWE title stuff and the matches with Brock. That was awesome. So Eddie Guerrero is just one example of this. I think just in general, the star power, the name value on SmackDown was a bit better. Like The Undertaker primarily, he was like the main one. They even made JBL into a reasonably legit top star. Like, yeah, I'm like trying to compare JBL to Steve Austin. There's no real comparison there, but yeah, in general, the Attitude Era had the better star power. You look at The Rock, how they made him in 1998, the Deadly Game tournament, really coronated The Rock at Survivor Series 1998. That was all brilliant. We had Mankind, we had The Undertaker, in the Attitude Era and the Ministry. We had Kane, Kane on the WWF title, the King of the Ring 98, all that good stuff. We had Triple H really becoming a star in 98, 99, 2000, 2001. We had Stone Cold Steve Austin and Vince McMahon, obviously. Just the star power. I have to give the nod to the Attitude Era. The Attitude Era just had the biggest stars. And the Ruthless Aggression Era had a lot of stars, but they were split across like two shows. So in that regard, I can't classify the Ruthless Aggression Era as having more star power. I guess in totality, when you look at who was on the rosters, like, for example, 2002, which was like the first year of the Ruthless Aggression Era, I look at that year, and that year was just absurd. That was the overflow of stars from the Attitude Era. So Stone Cold, The Rock, Ric Flair, you still had Undertaker, obviously. You had a bunch of these guys from the Attitude Era, overflowing into the Ruthless Aggression Era, into the era of the Cenas and the Ortons and all these guys. So there was like a crossover in 2002 and 2003, which made one of the most stacked, the most stacked roster in wrestling history. The WWE 2002 roster, just ungodly, that roster. Like, oh my god, the NWO was a whole pick in the draft. Like, Jesus Christ. So, yeah, the 2002 roster was stacked. That was like the crossover between the eras. The Attitude Era had the bigger, like, overall stars as far as Austin, Rock, those guys. But the Ruthless Aggression Era had a more, spread out range of stars. So, that's that. As far as storylines and moments, in my opinion, it's tricky because moments mean more to some than others. For example, let's just use Eddie Guerrero winning the WWE title. When Eddie Guerrero won the title from Brock at No Way Out 2004, some people view that as the best wrestler, or the greatest wrestling moment in history. Their favorite wrestling moment in history. Something that nothing will ever go past. And in that regard, they're always, them, they, you, are always going to answer that, the Eddie Guerrero moment as being the best moment ever. And accordingly, the Ruthless Aggression Era has the best moments because it has the moments you remember most fondly. So in that regard, this category is very subjective. Best moments, like, it really comes down to which you prefer. Do you prefer Mankind beating The Rock to win the WWF title on the January 4th, 1999 episode of Raw? Do you prefer that? Do you prefer Stone Cold Steve Austin pouring cement into Vince McMahon's Corvette and the windows exploding? Do you prefer This Is Your Life with The Rock? Do you prefer that? Or do you prefer Eddie Guerrero winning the WWE title? Do you prefer Benoit and Eddie hugging at the end of WrestleMania 20? Do you prefer Batista giving the thumbs down to Triple H and then power bombing him through a table? Do you prefer all these great moments? I mean, there's plenty of great moments over wrestling history. Do you prefer DX impersonating the McMahons? Like, all these kind of moments. It really comes down to which you prefer. In my opinion, it's so tough. I give it to the Attitude Era because the Attitude Era booked their shows to have a lot more of those moments because they were trying to one-up WCW in the ratings and trying to give the fans more incentive to watch the shows. So I feel like in that regard, the nod has to go to Monday Night Raw and WWF and the Attitude Era. That's what I feel as far as moments and the captivating storylines. Because once again, don't get me wrong, Ruthless Aggression Era had some incredible moments. Some moments that wrestling fans will never ever forget, 100%. Had some incredible storylines, but I feel like, as far as the top echelon of moments and storylines, that went to the Attitude Era purely because WWE and Vince Russo and Vince McMahon felt the need to make more of those big, memorable moments to outdo WCW, if that makes sense. So in that regard, moments goes to the Attitude Era. As far as just intangibles and other stuff, I feel like just as a product, I think, look, there was more variety in the Ruthless Aggression Era, once again due to the brand split because of the overflow of, wrestlers, and how that 2002-2003 roster was so ungodly stacked that they split the rosters and had Raw and SmackDown with a brand split. I think because of that, there wasn't the concentration of elite talent on one show. Like in the Attitude Era, you had Monday Night Raw, Raw is War, getting everyone and having the main, everything storylines. Because outside of Raw in 1998, 1999, for the first half, what was there? Sunday Night Heat. Whereas you look at SmackDown and Raw in the Ruthless Aggression Era, there were 2 shows, stars were spread over them, so there's more variety. And really, at the end of the day, at the end of this Ruthless Aggression Era versus Attitude Era debate of sorts, I think the really consensus thing is, which do you prefer? Do you prefer over the top, very moments heavy, very in-your-face style of entertainment where in-ring matches and the work rate type of thing is not the priority? Do you prefer that with the Attitude Era? Or do you prefer, better matches? Do you prefer more, less concentration of stars due to a brand split, having Raw and SmackDown each showcasing a few stars more selectively, as opposed to having everyone on one show? Do you prefer moments that aren't as in your face and aren't as constant, but they're still amazing moments, like, for example, Eddie winning the WWF title? Do you prefer that kind of stuff? And in that case, you prefer the Ruthless Aggression Era. It's really to here's your own type of debate. There isn't really one outright winner. Like, if you want to look at ratings, then the Attitude Era just wins. But at the same time, we're not really just basing this off ratings. I'm just basing this off in general. Like, which one is, better to watch? Which one do you prefer? That's just my opinion on the debate. Personally, I'd prefer watching the Attitude Era purely because of the concentration of star power. It was a 2-hour show each week, Raw is War. It was 2 hours of concentrated star power, must-see storylines, big hot angles every week. That's why I prefer the Attitude Era. But if you prefer the Ruthless Aggression Era, 100%, I love the Ruthless Aggression Era. Compared to watching what we get nowadays, I'd watch the Ruthless Aggression Era shows 1,000 times over. But it is what it is. So yeah, that's been the video. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed. Leave down below which you prefer, the Ruthless Aggression Era or the Attitude Era. You probably have already if you made it this part of the video. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, like, comment, sub. You guys know the drill. See ya.